let's talk about the Patriots. And I want to talk about the roster, but I also want to comment a bit on the Mike Vrabel Ratgate. He made the comment in the wake of Javon Baker,
Ja'Lynn Polk.
Ja'Lynn Polk.
Ja'Lynn
So
Polk.
I knew it was one of those guys. Ja'Lynn Polk being sent to the IR, potentially saving his himself from an outright release as a result. And the response, in case you have not already saw it, was that Mike Vrabel initially said no, he had no comment, and then he further, unprompted, expressed that he wanted to find some of the rats in the building that were breaking news or leaking news, whatever it might be. Um, there's been some back and forth amongst certain media members about how big of a story it is, whether it is a story at all. My thought on it to get us jumped off is this is Mike Vrabel being even more Bill Parcells-y than I felt he was when everything was getting started. He's always going to have a smarmy remark. He's always going to be a little bit of a jackwagon with his responses. Do I think it was totally nothing in that he's not literally feeling that there's other people within Gillette Stadium who might not be entirely on the same page with his program? No, because again, to go back to the Parcells analogy, there was always a little bit of truth underneath the Parcells digs, and I think that in similar fashion, I think there's a little bit of truth under the Vrabel dig. So without totally dismissing that, I think that in this instance, it struck me as just Vrabel being a little bit of a jackass, and the people who are there or have been listening to his press conferences often, the beat writers in particular, recognized it as such. As they've spent time with him for a couple months now, and I think that folks or maybe casual fans who are really now starting to tune in with the season just a couple weeks away may have read slightly more into it than he actually meant.
Yeah. Go ahead, Logan.
I don't think it's a massive story. I mean, let's level set here. We're talking about Ja'Lynn Polk, who is a roster bubble candidate going on IR in preseason. Like, this is not a big Stephon Diggs being cryptic kind of thing. So if Vrabel was serious, what a weird battle to pick. And if he's not, I would sooner say he's not. Then of course it's just the media running with something. And I think that's probably where we've lost the plot a little bit. Is like Vrabel said on WEI this week that like you guys take everything so seriously. Vrabel's been around for a while. I think he knows news of a guy going on IR and his season getting cut short is going to get out probably before the team says it. So it's like I refuse to believe Mike Vrabel is unaware of that. And so I think he's just messing around with it and just being kind of smug, which I don't have much of an issue with. But it's like, hey, media members should probably know a little bit better than to like really inflame this. Like to me, it seemed like a quip more than anything. So that's just, it feels like we lost perspective of if this guy was really taking issue, like maybe he does have a little truth and he thinks more gets out than there should be. But at the same time, it's like, this is the way of the game now. And if he's not actually expecting that, it's insane. And I'm sure he knows it. So not much to make of it.
I got a few things here. I haven't just I again like being quote unquote out of the sports media. I don't follow this as closely to be fully transparent in terms of like I'm online all day, but I'm doing different stuff now than just following the New England sports rhythm, which has been kind of a trip. Like it's very strange. Like so, I haven't. The only real opinion I've seen on this was Felger, and that's not the greatest barometer, but he was like, "This is totally, a shot across the bow at Elliot Wolf," and it's like, wow, okay, to go straight there and say like he's basically this is the push and the pull of two different regimes and somebody has to win out eventually, and like the fact that maybe I'm just so naive, but the fact that I never even really contemplated this as being much of a story at all until now I'm being told that it has been a story is a naivete that probably didn't bode well for me as a media member for the long term in terms of like not wanting to or seeing a way to turn this into a bigger story. My thought, as always, when you're talking about uniformed personnel or executives or coaches talking about, and maybe this defeats the definition of a rat. When I heard that, I was like, he's talking about the agent. Like just talking about because I feel like this stuff comes from the agent more than it does anybody else. I think that's who these reporters are most locked in with. And so my thought was just this is a former player slash now a coach, quasi executive, taking a dump on an agent, spouting off before the team could put something out. I didn't necessarily think it was a shot at the front office, the training staff, the doctors. Like I just thought that he was pissed off that, Ja'Lynn Polk's agent leaked this and just got ahead of it for whatever reason. That's another one. I'm still not entirely sure why that happens at the rate it does and how fast. I don't totally. Maybe one of you guys can explain to me what if it came from the agent, what his representation has to gain from leaking this, other than future goodwill from a reporter. But like, it's just I don't know. So like, I thought it was totally overblown. I agree with what Ben was saying. I think this is just like the Vrabel experience, and I enjoy it, to be honest. Like this is so much more entertaining to me than Bill Belichick being a complete dickweed to everybody. Like Vrabel's still being a dickweed to everybody, but like you go back to the Phil Perry thing, like he's gonna treat Phil fine in the long run. Like when Phil had the was it the same press conference? What did he shoot? He shot down something. Oh, it was the Diana Rossini and Stephon Diggs thing, where they had the back and forth. I think that was before they went out to, maybe it was while they were in Minnesota after a practice. But I thought that was again, it's one of those things where like I think he just treats people like his love language is being a dick to people, and like I think that's him treating people with respect in like the weird roundabout way. And I just think that's the way he kind of carries himself. And I think this is more a reflection of that than him being like, oh, we got leaks out of this in our building. Like, I don't totally believe that.
Yeah, this is the guy that does push-ups on the field before games. Like, there's just a certain.
I think that's a shot across the
type of
bow at
person.
Wolf too, though. He's challenging Wolf to a push-up.
That's
contest.
true.
Yeah.
That would be a short-lived competition.
He's gonna do the Hegseth RFK challenge, and he'll do it in 3 minutes and be like, "I challenge Elliot to do it."
Yeah, Elliot Wolf will be in blue jeans, swinging from a pull-up bar.
Elliot and he'll challenge Elliot and Phil Perry. They'll be doing it together.
I'll go out for whiskeys after.
I do think it must be an adjustment when covering or having to bring up storylines with the Patriots, because you're coming off 20 plus years of someone with no personality, followed by someone who you never actually understood what he was saying. So like you couldn't really
read this guy.
You can't like react. You can't even get enraged to anything that Mayo said because it was like just word salad, and you were like, all right, anyway, I guess we'll talk about this other thing. But now it's like he's giving you actual material, like stuff that's actually fills the notebook and with the soundbite. And I just think it's more than 2 decades worth of an adjustment to be like, oh, wow, this is what a personality seems like.
Well, it is funny because Mayo was such an overcorrection that it was like, hey, you don't need to say everything. Like, you don't need to admit that you and your offensive coordinator are on totally different pages. So yeah, that was it's going to be an adjustment period.
Yeah, I thought I mean, it's just a combination of the two. Like it's the best and the worst of both of the guys before.
Well, I think that might also be the byproduct of like having to take anything Belichick said and run with it because you'd get nothing.
Yeah.
That was like, there was definitely an attitude at the time during like peak Belichick years when we were around of like, yeah, well, I guess the headline's just here's what Belichick said to question about X. And like, that's how you had to approach it. And then it was like, well, this is going to be the best we can get on him. And so then everything gets unpacked. And it's like, yeah, maybe it is a shot at an agent, but I cannot possibly imagine caring that much, including Mike Vrabel, about a Ja'Lynn Polk injury update getting out 5 minutes ahead of schedule.
That's the other thing. Like, why would he care about that? And like, maybe that is the one thing. So like, that might be the one thing that he actually is trying to figure out. Even if it is an agent, it's like we need to be better with who we're giving information to or how it's getting out or like the chain of command and like we need to be the sort of organization where there aren't any leaks whatsoever, and that means we have to tighten up other parts of our process before it gets to that point than anything else. But like, I mean, once like Ja'Lynn Polk knows what his injury is,
Yeah.
and he's gonna tell his agent or he's gonna tell somebody else like that. So maybe this is not a great example of that. But I do think Vrabel getting a little upset about that could be proof of like him being like, this. We're trying to build this thing in a very specific certain way, and like stuff getting out like that, regardless of who it comes from, is not the business that we want to be in if we can help it.
That does kind of track with like supposedly imparted the sentiment on the players that like only speak about yourself. And then there was that like Keishon Booty interview where
Yeah,
he wouldn't
just
even talk about Drake May
yeah.
being good. And everyone was like, what the hell is this? And then some reporters said like, oh, it's just like this is probably him trying to only speak for himself. So like as a big picture thing, I can understand like he probably doesn't want a bunch of stuff getting out. It's just like, all right, this is the battle we're choosing. So that's why I think that I don't think there's a whole lot to this other than maybe a blanket statement.